Good evening, everyone. My name is David Berga, and I'm a member of the Fold planning team. I'm very excited to be your host for today. This is the final session for this year's Fold, which is called 5 Years of Fold, and it'll run until about 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At the end of the panel, we're going to have a Super Kahoot literary trivia session. The winner will receive books by all the Fold authors that we've had this year, so hope you'll stay on and join us. We are pleased to offer closed caption technology for today's sessions and for all of our sessions that we've had this year. We want to thank Audible for sponsoring this event, and we'll be giving out a free audiobook to Audible Canada members who are watching tonight. You'll find out how to get the audiobook at the end of the talk. Our festival typically takes place on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded Indigenous territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional homeland of the Wendat, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee, increasing our awareness, understanding, and conscientious action. If you're joining us today and you're not Indigenous, we'd like to encourage you to think about and explore stories written by the first inhabitants of the place where you are living. We invite you to consider this question along with us. How can you embrace the role of listener and learner as you explore matters related to reconciliation and the land you live on? This virtual space is meant to be a safe space for all guests and panelists. We have closed the chat function to avoid disruption, but feel free to use the Q&A box, which you'll see at the top or bottom of your screen to ask questions of the panelists. If you're joining by phone, we are also checking Twitter throughout the event for questions from the audience using the hashtag Fold2020. This session is called 5 Years of Fold. It is my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Steve Beattie, who is a writer and critic in Toronto and runs the literary website That Shakespearean Rag. He does something called 31 Days of Stories, which is going on now for May. It's fantastic. You should go visit his blog. He says a lot of smart things about short stories and narrative. Stephen will appear on your screen with our panelists in a moment. If there are any glitches, any point during the event, hold tight or log back in. We'll post updates on our Twitter page as well. Once the session is over, I'll come back with a few final housekeeping items.
Hello.
Hello, how are you, Stephen?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Well, feels like a trick question. No, I'm good. I'm feeling really good.
Yes, yes. And are you exhausted? Are you ready to sleep for the next couple of weeks, or?
You know what? I would say with the physical festival, it is worse. Like I get to this point and I don't want to talk to anyone or be around, or it's just like wearing. But what was interesting about this one is, you know, I got to work out every morning and then rest for a little bit. Like we didn't start till 12 and we didn't have to be on till 11:30, where, you know, even if we started at 12 at a physical festival, we would have been on at like 7.
Sure,
8, we would have been at the theater running around. So yeah, I'm really pleased. I'm really
Hi,
pleased.
Amanda.
Hello, Steve. Hello. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you both for inviting me. It was a really, it was a great privilege and a great honor to get the invitation. And when I thought I was going to be coming to Brampton and seeing you in person, it's an equally great honor to be doing this virtually. And I have to tell you, I've been gobsmacked by the way you guys have been able to pivot on a dime from holding a festival in person and having everything programmed and scheduled and laid out. And then you had to entirely revamp that, to put it online, to get all of your participants on board, to get everything, to get the technology working, and you were able to do it in a matter of weeks, if not days. So I guess the best place to start with this kind of conversation about 5 years of the Fold, because your 5th anniversary was quite the anniversary. So I guess the first place to start is sort of a debrief about how do you think it went? What are your feelings about the virtual Fold in 2020?
I think we're also gobsmacked to a certain degree. I mean, I'm being facetious. I think it went really well. And I'm just surprised. One of the things that I was thinking about when we were talking about what we were going to do for our 5th anniversary festival, and I know, I think traditionally the idea is, you look for big names to come and highlight. And one of the things that we talked about early on, and one of JL's brilliant ideas, as with many of her brilliant ideas, was to really, reinforce what diversity means and what it means to have a diverse festival, and having different kinds of stories, different kinds of, having a theater play, having other things that take the stage. And it just, reflecting on it now, it seems really interesting to me that even in the midst of all of this upheaval, we actually managed to make the 5th anniversary festival very much about that, what it means to have a diverse space that so many people can access, a space that's really inclusive, a space that's really accessible, both physically and then in other ways as well. And it seems kind of, magical to me, almost, in a way, that this all kind of came together in the way that it did. And so much of that is due to, the wonderful people that we have as part of the organization. We have such a great team, and none of this would have been possible without them.
Jill, were you pleased with the way that people responded to the pivot to the online festival?
Yeah, I mean, it was beyond my expectations, for sure. I mean, I think when I envisioned the festival, when I was working with the board in the initial stages, I never would have imagined a virtual festival. It was like never part of the 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan ever. And what's interesting, we had done online activity, we had done online workshops and things like that, but it never occurred to me that the entire festival could or would ever be online. So when we did need to, or decided to, I think we sort of decided even before we really needed to, it was just kind of, I don't know, I think we benefited from the fact that we just didn't have a lot of time, and there weren't a lot of options. There was a moment, I think, where stuff was coming out about the coronavirus and what it might do, and that, we might be shut down for a month, or, it might look a little bit like this, it might make things more difficult or whatever. But before it became like what it actually was, I think there was some thought about, like, do we cancel? Do we postpone? There was like that little weighing in. But I just thought, in these times of crisis, people who are marginalized experience it the most. They feel it the most. And so our festival has always been for authors who've been marginalized and audiences who are marginalized. And I just thought, in this time in particular, something like The Fold is needed. It's not something we should or could. We should, I guess, say, we could, obviously, but not something we should cancel, because we need to be together. We need to find ways to be together. We need to find ways to connect. And when you're from marginalized communities, when you're disabled and you're trapped in your home in this particular way at this particular time, when you are, a person of color who is living on your own, or, living in difficult, whatever it is, it's particularly important for us to continue writing. And in order to do that, we have to find these ways to, boost each other up, to energize each other, to remind ourselves, what it is we do and why we do it.
And what about the numbers of people who attended this year's festival? Were you pleased with the attendance?
I can't even say the number. It just seems bizarre to me. It's like, one of our city officials asked for the numbers today, and I told her, I gave her the number. It was, according to Zoom, we had 7,100 participants this weekend between Thursday and Sunday. And
how does that compare to previous years?
It's like a 700% increase. And I think it's not just the 700% increase. I mean, one of the groups that makes up our largest number is our students.
Right.
And so, I mean, in terms of adults, it's even more probably than a 700% increase, because, I mean, we have a challenge being in Brampton, getting people physically to the festival, whether that's, because of access and finances and transport, or just awareness and understanding about what it is. You know, the Fold is one of Brampton's first, well, it's probably the first festival, I would say, that draws audiences from outside the city, where you're actually supposed to be, you know, coming to Brampton for this thing that's for everybody. We have a lot of festivals and events that are for our city and for the people in our city that are amazing. We have a jazz festival that started about the same time as Fold, but you know, it's been the first and biggest sort of national draw festival, and we're starting from the ground. Like, people in the city don't really know what it is, or we're so used to going to Toronto for it.
Right.
And so so yeah, our biggest challenge in the physical festival is just getting people to know and come and be here, and that's been a very slow growth. And this is like I don't even know.
I mean, you eliminate the travel, right? But do you also eliminate a bit of the intimidation factor? Because I mean, you can engage with authors online and on a screen without having to be in the same room with them. And perhaps, do you think that that sort of gives people an extra level or an extra buffer in terms of a comfort zone?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, being able to come and be with people in their homes is a big part of it. Coming at it from a disability perspective, I know, you know, we got a lot of feedback from viewers that might not have been able to visit the festival for a variety of accessibility reasons. You know, many having to do with travel, and many having to do with just having the energy to, you know, physically leave your house and go to an event. And that felt really special, like knowing that people could come in and could still participate in the conversations too, right? So it's not just that you're being, you know, invited to watch a webinar, but you can participate through the Q&A. You know, people could use the raise hand feature in Zoom and all these kinds of things that really contributed to making it feel like still a very intimate space with intimate conversations. And I felt that was really, it really surprised me. It shouldn't have, but it really surprised me to have that feeling, you know, watching everybody on the screen and seeing the conversations and the laughter that was happening, and just how it felt like a very safe space that also had a really interesting energy, a sort of energizing energy, if you will, running through it. And that was something that, you know, was echoed, I think, by both participants and attendees alike, which was really great to see.
So going forward then, can you imagine a situation where you would not necessarily do this again, because we presume that, you know, COVID-19 is not going to go on forever, and that at some point society will reopen and we'll be able to meet again in the same space. But do you foresee a situation where you sort of do a hybrid of in-person events and online events? Do you see a situation where this kind of thing is going to become part of your regular programming?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we see when people from England and the US and from regional areas in provinces across the country, when they tune in and they see the festival and they gain value from it, we recognize that what we do that's working, that's meaning something, that's changing things, really shouldn't be only offered in a way that's exclusive to being in a physical space with us. We want to do the in-person piece for sure. We want to grow that. We want that to be a solid part, but I do think a virtual component will be a part of the festival going forward. And it's funny because every year we do the festival, you know, we're sort of like, should we go 3 days? Should we go? Remember when we went from 3 days to 4 days? And it was like, oh gosh, what are we doing? And then people would say things like, well, one day it's going to be, you know, a week long. And I was like, no, I cannot do this for a week under no circumstances. And what's interesting about the virtual piece is it's the first time where I can actually conceive of having a week-long festival, where, you know, the first part is digital and virtual, and the second half is in person. But also, you know, I'm really interested in what happens with our YouTube component. We're going to turn all the panels from this weekend into YouTube videos. And I'm curious what happens when people have access to the material all the time, when they can share it in their classrooms and they can use it in their book clubs. I'm curious with what that looks like, because maybe there's also a part of us that makes even the in-person accessible, available to people who can't be here physically.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm definitely will continue to be a part of the festival going forward. People have been asking about that all weekend, so hooray! There's the news. But yeah, I think it's a really good fit for us, given our mission and given the response.
Well, I think, as I say, you know, the job that you've done in terms of putting this online is just incredible. But this is your 5th anniversary. You have 4 years behind you. So I kind of want to go back and take a look at the development of the festival from the early days as well, rather than, you know, simply talking about this year. And I thought that the best way to do this was to sort of start almost before the beginning, JL, when you published The Stone Thrower back in, it was 2012?
2012, yeah.
2012. The publishing landscape in Canada back then was, I would venture to say, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, the publishing landscape back then was different than it is today.
Yeah.
I think that the publishing landscape has changed markedly in the last 5 years, and I think that the Fold has a lot to do with those changes, and I think that's all to the good. But you know, what I wanted to ask you, JL, was what was your experience when you went to publish the memoir about your father in 2012? What was your experience navigating the Canadian publishing landscape, and how did that experience feed into your desire to start the Fold?
Yeah. When The Stone Thrower came out, I was really excited about it. My dad was the first Black quarterback to win the Grey Cup. He has a phenomenal story. I'm not sure if I did it justice in writing the book, but I believe wholeheartedly that his story is worth reading. So, you know, there's that plug. And when I put it out, I was surprised at the lack of interest from festivals and just the lack of awareness that was available to me for the book. You know, even from my publisher, I had the misfortune of my publisher being bought out the year that my book came out. And so there was this transition where essentially I've always felt like there was never anyone that really championed the book as it was coming out, because the publicist and the publisher who were in charge of it sort of handed it off to another publisher, and most of the people there like really didn't have a personal connection to it. So I had that going on, and so I was trying to do my own hustle. I was, you know, doing that thing where you email festivals. Don't do that. No, just kidding. I now know how difficult it is for festivals to program. But what was interesting is while that was happening, I love literary festivals. I mean, love. I've been to many across the country. And I was noticing how white they were, and white not only in terms of the authors who were presented, but white and in terms of the people who were going. I was often the only Black person at the festivals, and I just thought, like, duh, like, come on, like, you're missing this piece. You're creating this space that's only for some people, and it really frustrated me. I mean, one of the most distinct memories I have was going to a festival and doing a workshop and on dialogue, and the workshop leader picked this scene of dialogue to read, and it was about a white couple talking about their Black maid. And I was the only Black person in the room, and it was the most uncomfortable feeling to just, I'm sure I felt like nobody else noticed, and I felt physically sick. And that combination was really difficult. And so for me, when the thing happened in the States with We Need Diverse Books, and all of these people across the States in particular were talking about why they wanted diverse books, I realized in watching it that, you know, even white people want diverse books. And I know that sounds stupid to say out loud, but we're always taught that, like, find your audience means, like, how do we get Black people a book about Black people? Because they're the ones that are going to want to read it. And it wasn't until the We Need Diverse Books movement that I realized, like, I like diverse books. I had read white authors and I liked those stories, but they weren't like me. And I also love stories about people who are like me. And so I had to, I think you have to, like, reshape your brain in publishing and remind yourself of what, like, the core is. And the core is that readers love great stories,
right,
and that people of all different communities tell great stories. And I had to essentially create a space for myself. I thought, if I have another book come out, I'm going to have the same thing happen. I'm going to have no festival to go to, no platform to talk about. No one's going to know me. And so I wanted to create a festival that was for people like me and people who weren't like me and people I wanted to read. And so that was that was the beginning idea, and that's always been the driving force. And I think along the way, I've also become really interested in marketing great stories and finding ways to increase people's platforms. You know, authors that you might not find because they're with a smaller press or because they just didn't get the publicity. That's really been like a core issue for me. How do I support other writers coming out with books so that when they do all that work of writing a book, they're known, you know, they're seen.
Right.
They're, you know, Kahiso talked about it this week about, you know, just her goal is that people know the stories that she's writing, that they're aware of these stories. And that's really like a driving part of what I do.
And that also involves getting books into people's hands and making sure that books are accessible, which is another benefit of the Fold, because it's brought not just diversity in terms of skin color and ethnicity into the conversation, it's also brought diversity in terms of differently abled people. And you know, I want to get back to the origins of the Fold, but just to sort of illustrate the way in which the publishing landscape has changed over the last 5 years. Amanda, you published a book called Disfigured with Coach House this year.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong in this, it was the first book that was published simultaneously across all platforms to be accessible on the same day.
Yes.
And it has this great phrase, I have to say it because I said it at her book launch, and it was the best line. It's the first book to be born accessible.
It's the first book to be born accessible.
Yeah.
How does that feel to you, and what does it say to you about where we are in the industry today?
To be perfectly honest, Steve, it feels great, but it also tells me that there is actually a very significant amount of things about the industry that have not changed at all. I mean, it has been a great honor, and Coach House has been so lovely. And the organizations that we worked with, Sela and Nels, who do the work of creating equitable, accessible versions of books in libraries across the country, were so wonderful. It was a very collaborative project. But, you know, I'm hopefully going to publish other books. I have a novel coming out in the spring next year. And it's not written in, it wasn't written into the contract for any other books, you know, and it's probably not going to be written in the contract for future books to have that book automatically put out into accessible versions, right? Because that's just not something that the publishing industry at this moment in time thinks about. And you know, I think we're getting to a point where the industry is aware that things need to change and things need to be different, but it's taking a really long time to move the wheel. I mean, people with print disabilities in particular make up about 3 million people across Canada, and that's about 8 to 9% of the population. And that's not an insignificant number of people. And what happens is you have books that traditionally are published in print format first, potentially print format and an audiobook. But you know, they'll come out and then it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year for accessible versions of those books to reach the market. Right. So, you know, for example, you might have a book come out in the fall, right, to take advantage of the fall award season. And if that book gets maybe shortlisted for the Giller, it will maybe speed up having it put into accessible production, but it still means that people with print disabilities probably aren't going to access that book at the same time as people who don't have print disabilities.
Right.
And that's a real significant inequity in the publishing industry that, you know, isn't talked about as much as it should be. The inaccessibility of literary events is not talked about as much as it should be. You know, we had Dorothy Ellen Palmer here on the weekend, and she has been such a great advocate for the last, you know, 4 to 5 years about the ways in which CanLit and the sort of literary industry and the ways that publishers look at and approach books and the stories we tell do all of these things in ways that continue to be inaccessible for a really large part of the population. And so while I'm really hopeful about, you know, the fact that there have been changes, because absolutely there have been, and there is, yes, an increase in awareness of the fact that things need to be different, I think we're still waiting for that kind of structural change that really is the thing that's necessary and needed. I mean, people talk a lot about, you know, the Fold as being this kind of trailblazer and, you know, setting these sort of best practices in place. And I think that's great and wonderful. But also at the same time, I feel like, you know, we're not here to do everyone's diversity
Sure.
work for them.
Great.
And you know, that is something that we ourselves are still discovering and looking at, you know, and especially from the accessibility side of things, I can say as a, you know, a disabled writer myself, there are still so many things that I'm learning about what it actually means to create a space that's truly inclusive, truly accessible, considering all sorts of different things for different people.
Sure.
We're constantly learning, but I think, you know, it's not enough for the Fold to discover these things and put them in practice and then have other festivals and other industries and other, you know, organizations follow in our wake. I think it's time for people and organizations to be working alongside us and discovering what it means to really make that kind of lasting change.
Right, right. Well, I mean, JL, I took a look at that cover article that we did with you back in 2016, the first year of the Fold. And that's me patting ourselves on the back, like we're kind of trailblazers too, because we knew that this was going to be a big back in 2016, even if nobody else did. But one of the things that you said in that article was you were talking about how when you went to festivals, if there were marginalized authors or, you know, diverse authors on a panel, it was always sidelined into a panel about diversity, and those authors would talk about diversity. And one of the founding principles of the Fold was these authors can talk about anything. They can talk about writing process, they can talk about craft, they can talk about, you know, any of the things that you know, a panel of all white authors can talk about. How important was that in terms of the way you conceived of structuring the Fold in its first year?
I think that's one of the most important pieces in terms of like programming and philosophy. It's that, you know, we say it was like our tagline, you know, diverse authors are not just experts in diversity, they're experts in craft.
Right.
And when they publish a book, they know about writing and storytelling and all these sorts of things. And I saw it when I came out of my MFA program. And I was the only, there was like 7 of us that came out with books the year we graduated. And I was the only person of color. And so many of them were on these panels talking about craft and character. And I was on panels talking about writing home and, you know, diverse voices or whatever it was. And, you know, it still aggravates me. It's something I think festivals are still trying to figure out. And I think one of the things that's really important to realize is that authors from marginalized communities sometimes want one or the other or both. And so we try, when authors are invited to the festival, we ask them about that kind of thing, the things that they're comfortable talking about. Because I think some authors want to get out there and they have causes and they have beliefs and they have things that they want to champion. And there's other authors who just like, I just write because I love writing. Like, you know, Sonia Lawley was talking about that this week. She was like, I didn't write for all the brown girls out there. I just wrote because I really love writing. And I think allowing marginalized authors to have that full range of choice is really important. We let authors decide if they're comfortable doing workshops. We let authors decide if they're comfortable moderating and being on panels. And you know, all these things are really, really important to the overall experience for an author, because sometimes you get thrown into situations, sometimes you find out what you're being asked to present on in a panel on, and the topic, the title makes you cringe. You're like, oh my gosh, oh my God. And sometimes you have to tell it. And to be honest, we've made mistakes with that too. We've made titles and descriptions that authors didn't like, but we always give the authors like a window to tell us. And we have our accessibility committee look at them as well. So there's multiple checkpoints for us. Right. And that's been really important, because I know what it's like to like get yourself on a panel and you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to talk about this. Or even worse, like, I don't want to be the token. I don't want to be the only Black person on this panel. I don't want to sit next to 3 cisgendered white dudes who want to talk about like just things that don't matter to me and ignore the things that matter to me. So I think because Amanda and I are both authors as well, that probably helps us to think through like what's been difficult for us and what's made us uncomfortable and what might be helpful.
Can you, both of you, kind of walk me through in 25 words or less how you go about programming a year? Like what are the considerations? Like when you say, okay, we've got 19 panels, how do we fill them? What are the considerations that you take into account?
Who's missing? Okay, that's 2 words.
You can actually do 25. Can you say?
You can go over 25.
That's the first big question is really thinking about who is missing from, the stories that we want to tell from a particular panel. And that's a question that I think we continue to ask. We ask it both at the beginning when we're trying to, think about who we invite and how we structure the year, sort of how things fall in place. And it's also something that we keep asking once we have sort of general ideas for panels in mind and start slotting things into place, right, and putting people here, there, and everywhere. Because, once you start that work of slotting people in, that question becomes even more important, because you have to think about how, person X is going to, be in this panel beside person Y. And is this experience being, talked about on this panel? Are we leaving room and space for really important things to be talked about and explored in ways that they should be talked about and explored? That was much more than 25 words.
I will never fit into 25 words. I think one thing that's really important is that we start with the most underrepresented and the most continuously overlooked. A lot of festivals will start with like, who's the biggest name we can get? What's the biggest title we have coming out this year? And I think that gets you into a dangerous philosophy and a dangerous premise. I think it ends up drawing a similar kind of audience all the time. We try and ask ourselves, who do audiences need to hear from? Who's missing from people's bookshelves? Right. Whose voice is not getting amplified? I think those are the beginning questions that are really important. I also think, and it's important to note, I've never said this out loud to anyone, but I'm going to say it. We also don't invite jerks. So if I've been to a festival or event and I've seen someone on a panel or I've seen someone interact and they were inconsiderate of their colleagues, they went over their time frame, and I don't care if they're marginalized or not, if they don't have consideration for their peers, it's just not happening. Sure. And so that's a really big part. Our panels are such a big part of the festival. Mm-hmm. And so that dynamic, that mixture of people is really important. And so it has to be people strong, assertive voices, yes, please. But if you can't also listen, mm-hmm, love and care for the people on the panel with you, I honestly don't care how big a name you are. I right. just have it.
I think that's a very good policy.
I think there's really something about the way that we go about creating safe spaces, and what JL was talking about leads directly into that, right? Because it's about creating a space where we can have sometimes difficult conversations, but people understand that they are still safe in the midst of maybe being uncomfortable with things that are right. talked about on the stage. And, having people who are respectful and, have empathy and awareness and can themselves give space for those kinds of things to happen and those kinds of conversations to take root is really important. And as with everything, it's something that we're continually learning about and perfecting and improving. But I think it's also something that I've really come to think it's one of my, I have many favorite things about the Fold, but that is one of them, that sense that, anybody can come and feel like they're safe to be who they are, right. And maybe even who they want to be. Someone may not feel like they can be who they want to be out in the wider world, but I'd like to think that the Fold is creating a space for writers to write the kinds of things that they want to write and be the kind of people that they maybe want to be.
Right. So
we went so over the 25 words. It's not even. So I'm just going to make it worse by adding this. I think our planning team is also a really important part of this, because I think one of the challenges when you have a festival is being a gatekeeper and having to make those decisions. If you're a single artistic director, making all those decisions yourself is overwhelming. And we have a planning team of about 20 people. You saw David in the opening. Most of our hosts this weekend were on the planning team, and they help shape what's needed. And I'll give you a perfect example. The planning team 2 years ago asked for a dance party, and I said, it's a terrible idea, terrible, and I'm not having it, I'm not interested. And they pushed and they pushed, and we had a dance party last year. Sure, it was small, but it was fun. And this year with the virtual festival, I found the dance party was like really lovely. Like there was I was in my office dancing with my husband as we listened to this music, and I realized like that's the kind of thing that happens when you allow people to push content and you don't just like say, no, that I don't want to do that. That's a terrible idea, you know? I tried to stop it, but I couldn't.
You also solicit feedbacks from, like, if you were to invite an author to be on a panel, will you solicit feedback about what they want to talk about, how they want to talk about a subject?
When we have difficult subjects, we do. Like, I remember in our first year, we wanted to have a panel on mental health.
Right.
And we were like, how do we go about asking the authors if they want to talk about it? It's really awkward when you've invited, you know, and I think this is another thing to notice. We have a very small festival. We actually only have about 25 authors on the roster every year. So it's very difficult scientific work to get the right combination and then utilize them to put them in their best light.
Sure.
And so, when we do the contract, when we invite authors, we try and think about a difficult subject we might want to tackle and then ask people in advance if they're comfortable. So the second year we did the festival, in the contract, we said, would you be comfortable talking on a panel about mental health? And people said, yes, no, maybe, or whatever. And so we had, I would say about 6 authors say yes, and maybe 2 or 3 say maybe. And so we picked from the 6. We didn't want to put someone in a position that said maybe and feel like, yep, you know, you're doing it. But that's how, you know, that panel is still, I remember, like so meaningful, so powerful. Eden Robinson was on it. There was just a phenomenal group of people talking about it. And so that's one of the ways we try and think about difficult subject matter in advance. And then when people are signing up, and sometimes we've done it and we haven't used the subject because we haven't had enough people. We've been trying to get a panel with like all people who speak Urdu or Punjabi, and hasn't happened yet, but I'm still looking, you know, so we put it out there and see what we come up with sometimes.
You have also done an admirable job in spotlighting Canadian authors, and Canadian authors who, as you suggest, don't necessarily get the kind of platform that you give them in other venues. You also have, you know, like a limited number of spaces that you give over to international authors, American authors, Guyanese. You got a Guyanese author here this year.
And we had 20 Guyanese people sign in to listen. Very exciting.
which you were able to do because you're online. You could, you know, get people from wherever. Do you have any ambition or interest in increasing that international component of the festival at all?
You want me to tackle that, Amanda?
I mean, I think we do, but I also think, you know, recognizing that there's still a lot of ways in which we can highlight and celebrate Canadian authors. You know, I think that is sort of first and foremost our focus, and it's always going to be our focus. But I think especially with this new digital component, there are a lot more opportunities for us to maybe look outside of the country for different authors that we can bring in ways that can be really creative, and, you know, can maybe go even outside of the festival weekend, you know, looking for other programming and that sort of thing. Obviously, all of this is totally up in the air, and nothing is you know, for sure. And I'm not going to be promising anybody anything while JL's sitting there looking. What are you talking about? We're not doing this. Stop.
Never. Well, I'll tell you something that happened this week that made me think like this would be interesting. I think first and foremost, Canadians need to read more Canadians, and Turtle Island authors. Like, I think that's That's a huge problem. It's a problem when you go into Toronto and any airports, but specifically for me, I go to the Toronto airport and all the books in the airport are American authors. It's just ridiculous. I think that that's the least we can do is say in this space, for people coming and going, like, here are our voices, here are our storytellers. So I have a strong push and impetus for Canadian and writers who are writing in Canada and on Turtle Island. I think that what was interesting is Kahiso was talking with like 3 authors who, I think one was from England and one was from an African country. I can't remember. And I didn't know any of the 3 authors, but they were talking about something. And Kahiso said something like, we've got to get on a panel someday. And I was like, I'll have you, because I was watching the conversation. It was really interesting. And so it made me think, I feel like if we were to do an international focus, I would want it to be centered by Canadian storytellers or authors in Canada who have a link to another place that they want to, these are people that I knew or that writing about the place that I'm writing about, but from, the diaspora, they're spread out all over. And this is a conversation you want to pay attention to. I would love to have a way to create, maybe year round, maybe at the festival, conversations for writers who are here, but who have connections elsewhere and have stories and conversations they want to have. That's how I see the international thing going. I think when most people say, I think we're going to go international, they're trying to get the biggest international voices. You won the Man Booker Prize, and so we're going to have you as our international author. I'm not really interested in that particular approach. I'm not saying at any Man Booker Prize I wouldn't welcome them. You're welcome. I'm just saying it's a lot of work, and for festivals like us, it's usually a lot of work that doesn't always pan out, and I don't have the time or energy for that. But it's also maybe not the most important conversation all the time,
Sure.
and not the people that maybe need the most attention. I think one of my favorite panels this weekend was our translation duel panel.
So good.
And if you didn't attend it, and when it comes up, like, please watch it. It's really phenomenal. And I think seeing how an author who literally had to learn 4 languages, well, I guess 2 extra languages as a result of war and as a result of, fleeing one country, and then has created these phenomenal stories and maybe still isn't known here, is just like, that is the story for me. Yeah. Those are the voices I'm most interested in.
I apologize for cutting in on you earlier. I just wanted to circle back on what you were saying about Canadians not reading Canadian, because it's sort of off topic, but it's kind of not. But it's it's a conversation that has been coming up a lot online. And I just wondered whether either of you have any ideas as to why that might be.
Why people don't read Canadian?
Why Canadians seem to have a reluctance to pick up books by Canadian authors.
I mean, I have opinions that I'm not sure I should say in public company.
I think there's a real still kind of stereotypical view of what Canadian literature is, and the kinds of stories that Canadian literature encompasses. And that's because I think a lot of people were exposed to certain kinds of Canadian literature, the same kind of Canadian literature, when they were in school. I mean, there's really something about what happens when you're forced to read a particular kind of book, right? Or a particular book by a particular author over and over and over again. People, generally don't come away from those kinds of experiences falling head over heels in love with that kind of writer.
Sure.
And so I think, that work of expanding the definition and the understanding of what Canadian literature is and does starts in the classroom. And that's a huge arm of the fold, is really looking at getting diverse books into classrooms, because they understand classrooms, are where young readers start. That's where they fall in love with words. That's where they fall in love with stories. And, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I didn't read any stories about any disabled children when I was a child, when I was in school. And so, you know, I just sort of grew up thinking that there was no community out there for people like me. And that is an experience, I think, that has been replicated across various communities that would be quite different if Canadian books were marketed in schools the way that, you know, they should be. Over and above that, I think we need to be more aware of, and maybe even a little more aggressive about the ways that there are so many different kinds of Canadian story, right? The sort of traditional Canadian stories that those of us of a certain age, you know, people in their sort of, 30s and 40s and maybe late 20s, we've all read a certain kind of Canadian story, right? That's where all the jokes come from. You know, woman goes out into the snow, finds bear in deserted cabin sort of idea, right? See, you're laughing because you know.
Read that book.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with particular books that actually have those exact plot points. In fact, some of them are very wonderful. But, you know, there's a reason why people say that as a trope, right? And why when you say, oh, Can Lit, who wants to read that sort of thing? It's because people are thinking of that particular kind of story. What they're not thinking of are the huge variety of stories that are around us every day, because we've been socialized to think of the Canadian experience as being a very specific Canadian experience. And when children and young adults and adults are shown that there is no one way to be Canadian, that all stories are valued and important, then they begin to see themselves in the fabric of the world around them in a way that I think is really, really crucial. And it means that, you know, we really do have to be zealous, I will even say, about this kind of work, and publishers really need to take that to heart.
Yeah, I think that there is, I think that you have to be very intentional. I mean, the work that we do with Fold has to be very intentional. The work of promoting Canadian stories has to be very intentional. And
Right.
some of the largest institutions don't have that same priority of being intentional about marginalized authors or even about Canadian authors, which makes marginalized Canadian authors particularly screwed. And I think the other thing that's important to say, again, Mike and in trouble, is that the book economy in Canada is really messed up, if you ask me. There's lots of disconnects. Libraries who don't know books that are coming out, Canadian or otherwise, teachers who are trying to teach diverse books but don't know where they are in Canada or how to get them, publishers who are trying to do better and trying to produce good books and diverse books, but some who don't know how, and so who are just kind of like doing these things that seem right or trying these things that are working in the US, but not really having measurables and ways of really prioritizing. And maybe the prioritizing is coming from the bottom up. You have newer people who are coming to Fold and other events and taking part in things that have this mission, this goal, this drive. And then the top, the money makers, the money drivers are saying, I don't know. And then the people on the bottom feel like, I'm tired, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And so, you know, it's just a really flawed system, a really flawed structure. And it's harming a lot of people. It's harming their own bottom line sometimes. Yeah.
That's an interesting segue into talking about the advocacy aspect of the Fold, because there's the literary part where you expose people to writing and craft and different voices and so on and so forth. But there's also an aspect of education that is integral, from my perspective, to what you do. And I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. One of the panels you had this year was called Fighting Injustice with Fiction. You had a group of novelists talking about the novel as an instrument for social justice. To what extent is that important for you when you're thinking about programming the Fold, and how do you feel novelists and literature can forward a better society, or a more inclusive society, or a kinder society?
I mean, I love books I learn a lot about history from books. I tend to pick up books that are about places I haven't been and people I don't know. And so for me, reading books about those kinds of things have made me an activist. I mean, it's going to sound corny, but maybe I've become a better activist for trans voices after reading Little Fish, after reading Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars. You know, those kinds of learning and understanding and seeing helps me form the language, the posture, the drive to do better in my everyday life. So I guess for me, it comes from a personal space that I feel like books, poetry, you know, Dion Brandt, you know, all these people, their work drives me as an activist. Kenesha Lubrin, we were talking the other day, and, you know, she was born an activist, if I can say that. He talks about like knowing things were wrong and understanding things about the world at a really early age. And that was not me. I was ignorant. I was unaware. I was not paying attention. And so for me, nonfiction titles, Lawrence Hill's Blackberry Sweet Juice, you know, fiction, all of it, fiction, poetry, theater, it's all helped me learn to be a better citizen. And so for me, and I also read things that are fun, that are romance, that also help me as a citizen. But I think the mixture, you know, for me, books have been a critical place of understanding what I don't understand.
I think for me too, one of the things that's been fascinating to watch is because I came to the Fold team about 2 years in, before the actual festival happened in 2016, but, you know, 2 years along the planning process. So JL and team had already sort of been thinking about these ideas and gestating with all of this, if you will, for, you know, 2 years. So it took a while for me to sort of understand where I sat in terms of that activism side of things. I think because I struggled with understanding that, you know, activism doesn't always need to be loud, for example, that, you know, one can be a quiet activist in many ways.
Sure.
And for me, this celebration part of the festival has been so revolutionary in terms of, you know, it really is an activist act to get up there and celebrate these authors and these stories that aren't celebrated as much as they should be in other arenas, in other places. You know, to sort of be with all of these other authors and to put their stories out into the world in this way, just through the love of reading and the love of these words has felt really important. Adam Pottle's voice, which we highlighted at last year's festival, had such a profound impact on the way that I view the world and the way that I move through the world. And, you know, to think that our festival has the capacity and the power to do that for viewers when they come in and maybe meet a book and meet an author that they haven't met before. That's the kind of thing that really sticks with you for a really long time. When you mentioned, you know, fighting injustice with fiction, Steve, I was thinking yesterday during the panel about how some of the deepest life lessons that I've ever had, I have gleaned and received through novels and through, you know, that sort of fictional storytelling. And I think there's a real power in that kind of language that sticks with people for a really long time. And it burrows very deep. And they're the kinds of revelations that maybe you don't understand them all at once, but they continue to play out in your life. And I feel really lucky that the festival and the community that the Fold is building is able to create and contribute to that experience.
Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I was going to say one thing. It's a thought I have to flesh out loud, as most thoughts I have, which means it may not be good. But, but I think that to be a marginalized author is a form of activism. I think to be from a community that's overlooked and underrepresented, and to spend time writing a story and crafting and editing it, knowing that there's a very good chance few people will read it or know about it, but that it will exist is a form of activism. It's a it's a shot in the dark. It's a cry into the dark to say, like, maybe one day this story will be seen. It'll be noticed. It'll be heard. It will change someone. I've heard authors say, like, if one person reads this and is changed, it is worth it. Right. And that is a kind of activism we don't often talk about, to craft a story, to shape it, and to send it out into the world that is a world that's unsafe, that's generally unwelcoming, that's unpredictable. That is a kind of activism. And maybe that's what Fold is in that sense. You know, it's like the collecting place for activists who often feel alone, who feel overlooked and neglected. And I think it's one of the hardest thing about programming when you can't have everybody. It's this feeling that, you know, these authors have spent time doing something that's as important as the other authors we've picked, but just, you know.
Right. And all of what you've said is true for adult readers. It's equally true for young readers. Mm-hmm. And, you know, starting kids early and starting them reading widely is very important. JL, I know that you wanted a children's portion of the Fold back in 2016 and couldn't figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You managed to do it last year with the September festival.
Yes.
How did that go? How do you feel about expanding the Fold to include children?
You know, it was the hardest thing, I think, in the last 5 years, probably, was putting on the Kids Fest. I would say September of last year, I was in a place that was not pretty. I was like physically sick for most of the month. I just like mentally sick over it. Just feeling like I didn't know what to do or how to make it work. I wasn't sure if anyone would come. You know, people did come, but like, you know, the numbers weren't great. The first time is always hard. And especially when you have money constraints, it's really stressful to sort of think like, should we put more into marketing so more people come? Will that work? Will this, you know, there's just a lot of unanswered questions when you go the first time out. And when you do I felt like people were so excited about the Kids Festival and so just ready from like a external viewers perspective, but we just didn't have the kind of help internally, like and so it felt like it worked out fine, but the lead up was tough and there were things I would have done differently.
But you're gonna do it again.
Yes, we're doing it again. I think one of the biggest problems with it was Amanda and I worked so hard for Big Fold, as we now call it. And we spent much of like June, July, August in particular, just resting and like laying low. And we tried to do that. And then we came back in September and realized, oh shoot, we have a festival in a month. We've been doing like, we got to do something. And so this year we posted a position for a Fold Kids coordinator. We got a grant and we're going to have a Fold Kids coordinator with a particular mission. And so they're going to be able to really keep that going year round. And their busy season will be our slow season. But I think that was the real, and I was really worried about doing it again, actually. I think one of the big mistakes I told Amanda is like, whenever I have an idea, we have to wait 2 years to implement it. There has to be 2 years, because we took 2 years to plan Fold. And then we announced Fold Kids this time last year to have it in October. Terrible idea. So no more of that.
You've also expanded into areas like the webinar series, Writers at the Rose, and so on. How have those expansions and those offshoots of the Fold worked for you? What's your feeling about those?
They've worked really well in different ways. And I think there have been learning curves with both of them that have been really interesting and fun to explore.
Fun, wow. If you say so, Amanda.
I'm trying to be diplomatic here. We're a fun organization, okay? Person who is going to come on board as a Fold Kids coordinator.
We're fun, but the work is not always fun.
No, you're not supposed to say that out loud.
It is always fun. We always have fun.
Thank you. No, it was, I mean, there were learning curves with both of them. You know, there's always that question of trying to figure out, like, you have an idea, but the audience that you're looking for, is that actually going to be the audience that you have, you know, with Writers at the Rose, especially because it is Brampton centric, you know, there was a real sort of period of time when we were trying to figure out what works well for Brampton, and I think we've found that now. We've gotten it, so we're excited to sort of go forward into the year and see, you know, what different Writers at the Rose sessions are going to look like. With Fold Academy, I always think the online stuff that we do is really neat, because I look at it from the perspective of someone who, you know, is not, I mean, I live in Hamilton, so I'm not based in Brampton, right? So I would not necessarily be going into Brampton for a Fold Academy session if it was being held in person, if I didn't already work for the Fold JL. Obviously, I will come for everything as an employee. But just the capacity to reach into the homes of people that is offered through doing things online is something really special and really innovative. And I think, especially for writers from marginalized communities who maybe can't access the traditional academic world of writing and writing instruction, I've always sort of felt like that is something that we have done really well, and really, again, building that community. Each of these, you know, different things, that these offshoots of the Fold, Writers at the Rose, and Fold Academy, have been about building community in different ways. And it's been really exciting to be a part of. Yes, absolutely. Kinks that we've had to work out.
I think Academy, in ways that we didn't always know, is to be really precise with our goal and our who it's for. You know, Fold Academy, and I'm really excited to be partnering with Humber School for Writers, and Harlequin has come on as sponsor, and HarperCollins, to offer online workshops throughout the year with phenomenal authors, many of them from marginalized communities, because for us, that particular event, the reason it will always be free and the reason it will always be online, which we learned over the first 2 or 3 years, is because it's for people who can't go to an MFA, or who can't move to Toronto to learn about writing. And it's in recognition that we need more disabled writers, we need more intersectional writers, Black disabled writers, Black trans writers, brown, all these sorts of things. We need more. And in order to do that, we have to, like, reach as accessible as possible into those spaces and say, look, I don't know if you ever thought about yourself as a storyteller, but for free, you can hear about it from this author. And for free, you can learn about creating craft. For free, you can learn about publishing. That is a really, really important part of Fold Academy, and that's why it's integral. The Writers at the Rose is really about building a Brampton-based community, and not just Brampton, but like the places that it's easy to get to Fold. That's what the Writers at the Rose community is about. It's about year-round saying, we're going to bring you authors all year round, and then once a year, we're going to bring a whole bunch of authors. And we've seen a really great growth in that area. We have really great support from the Rose Theatre in Brampton, and I miss them all terribly. It's been a really great relationship to work with them. There was a question in the Q&A box that I want to answer, because I think it's really important. And people have said, you know, with the online model, have you seen an increase in donations? A little bit, but not much. So
Take heed, everybody.
And I want to, you know, what I'd really love is, like, monthly donors are really great, and monthly, like $10, monthly 25, like whatever. It doesn't have to be this astronomical amount once. It doesn't have to be this astronomical amount every month, but monthly donations are really helpful because you know it's coming.
Sure, sure. I see that I have, you know, a couple more pages worth of questions, and I could share for the rest of the night, but I see that we're past 9 o'clock now. Did you want to go to the Q&A to take a couple?
Yeah, it would be interesting to pick a couple in there. So I'll ask Amanda this one. Have other festivals around Canada and the US been contacting you to ask you how you made the transition and to find out about the online format?
Yes, is the answer to that. We will be doing a webinar for other festivals and literary organizations who are looking to do their own online programming, probably sometime in June. It's going to take us a little bit of time just to get that all together. But yes, we will do a webinar. We'll have some tips and tricks on sort of how you can best pivot to online. So if you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, sign up for the Fold newsletter and you will receive more information about that once it comes available.
Excellent. One of the questions that I really like in here, one was about Francophone writers. And I think if you watch the translation panel, you know, like it was so awesome. We definitely plan on having more Francophone writers. And in terms of senior writers as well, that's always been a priority for us. And yeah, so both of those, yes. The other question was about something that we're interested in that hasn't been realized yet, or something like a dream for Fold that we haven't quite gotten to yet that I want to talk to. I think we're really hopeful that the physical festival and the virtual festival that we're now thinking about become a complement to one another, and that all the things we do sort of nicely complement each other. That's like a very theoretical. What I would also love is of international publishers and publicists, so that when we do include international voices, or when we want to do these kinds of integrations, some of the work we're doing and the education perhaps we've done influences other markets and influences ways that people are doing things around the world. I was really privileged to be a part of a program that I got sent to Edinburgh, Scotland this year, and I was with 9 other festival directors, and it was really amazing to have an influence on each other, to share and swap ideas. So I'm hopeful that what we've done in Canada perhaps can eventually influence on a larger scale. Just a small ambition there.
There's one question here that actually caught my eye. Diversity in publishing will be greatly impacted if the publishing industry in Canada was more diverse. Do you have plans to include a workshop about working in publishing, or a kind of career fair attachment? Now, I know you've done some work in terms of professional development and getting publishers and people like Bianca Spence and Anita Chong to come out and talk about working in the industry. But do you have any ideas about how to promote a vision that makes publishing as opposed to writing more inclusive, and to get more diversity into, because my argument has always been, you know, in order to do it, you need to have diversity in your publicity department, you need to have diversity in your sales and marketing department, you need to have diversity across the board. How do you go about doing that?
Oh gosh. I say this with all love and affection. Like when it comes to publicity, if I could just dig in and fix publicity and marketing, I think is one of the areas that frustrates me the most. And I think I say this, there are really great people working in publicity. There are phenomenal people always, but there's also a really flawed system, and in some publishing houses in particular. And it really impacts the authors, and I don't know, it's such a deep systemic problem. So I don't know. I think the problem is the work we have to do with Fold is so comprehensive. I mean, we're not just trying to highlight authors at Fold. When we do Writers Hub and when we do Pitch Perfect, we're also trying to create the authors that will eventually be at the Fold. We're trying to think about things from the writer inception stage all the way to the published and at the festival stage, and self-published writers too. We're trying to think about that whole spectrum. So to get into the industry on top of that feels like a big task that I don't know if that's a personal interest of mine. I'm interested in working alongside an organization that would be doing that. There's some great groups and some great people that are coming out with some great work, like BIPOC and Publishing. And so I'm deeply excited about working alongside people, but I don't see that as my personal mandate. but I think it's a big, big issue. And yeah. Let's sigh.
How are we doing for time?
We are at 9.
No, we should probably wrap it up so we can do our super Kahoot.
Well, in that case, can I say once again what an honor it's been to be in your company this evening and to have been asked to moderate this this panel. And congratulations on 5 years of the Fold.
Thank you.
Well, I want to say thank you to you too. I feel like, you know, Sue, your colleague, she made a comment online about, I talk a little about time when I saw that magazine, I thought, who is that person and how can I be like her? And, you know, it said, you know, JL, it said something about activist and will she change publishing? And I looked at that and thought, what? And it felt crazy. And what was really touching was for her, Sue was like, I saw it, I knew it. And then when I saw the picture, I was like, yes. So I just really appreciate, and the reason we wanted you here is because, you know, you really saw it in me even before it happened. And I want to give a shout out to my first colleague, Megan Lamb, and also Leonika Valsius, both of whom were really integral to the creation and inception of the Fold. I also want to shout out Marilyn Simmons, who sat with me at a writing workshop in Saskatchewan and said, I'll give you an hour of my time, ask me anything you want. And she had started Kingston Writers Festival. And I took vicious notes. And, you know, those people, those conversations, those moments are really, were really important to where Amanda and I get to be right now. All right, David, wrap it up. I'll be back in a second.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Stephen, Amanda, and JL. We're going to transition to our closing remarks and trivia. So even though our guests are leaving, we don't want you to go anywhere. Unless you want to go on social media and share how much you enjoyed the event and the festival. Thank you to our sponsors who graciously continue to support us as we transition to an online model. Copies of the Fold authors' books are available through Another Story Bookshop at anotherstorybookshop.ca. We also have content from our Fold Challenge and previous festivals at audible.ca/fold. If you enjoyed yourself today, please consider ways you might continue to support us. You can follow us online and share the word about the event and other events coming up. While everything is free, you can donate to the Fold Foundation at Canada Helps. And I hope everyone who's tuned in, and especially people who are new to the festival, will consider coming next year. It's amazing. This has been a fun weekend. The festival is excellent. Dance party is excellent. The panels, workshops, come. Amanda and JL have really created something amazing here. So I hope to meet some of you in person when all this is better. So be well and be kind to yourself and to others. And JL's coming on now to start today's trivia where you can earn some free books.